The revitalised interest in pinball machines has enticed many owners to place their games in public locations for paid use. In this show, I'll outline crucial factors you can use to help ensure success. I'm Mark Snyder, the founder of Pinball Expert. People often contact me for advice about operating pinball machines in a variety of different locations. I've discussed this many times and created this show to identify the most important factors for operating games successfully and profitably. When I entered the industry in the early 1980s, most game operators were not players too. They were people who only saw pinballs and other coin-operated games purely as a business. There were some established operators and new operators like myself who also enjoyed playing games, and this gave us a competitive edge which baffled the non-playing operators. Many of you watching will be regular pinball players, and this gives you a simple yet significant advantage when it comes to operating. A player knows which games are more fun, and this insight is a tremendous aid in identifying the most popular pinballs to operate. A player will also know how to fine-tune, adjust and set up a game for maximum appeal and enjoyment. A non-player just can't do that. It's also vital you play a new game or an unfamiliar used game before buying, especially if it's for use on location. A new or used game's player appeal and operational condition is very important. Any used game that doesn't work properly won't be very appealing to players, so never put a game on location that isn't working 100%. Keep in mind, even a popular game that works well can be a lot less fun to play if it's not set up very well. A boring game will get less play no matter how well it works, but its player appeal can certainly be improved with clever setup and fine-tuning. The most important element for success is the fun factor, how enjoyable a game is to play. As players, we all know different examples of the same game can feel quite different to play. This is why a game's setup is so important, and it involves examining a range of adjustable factors. I typically spend between 1 and 2 hours assessing every game by playing, altering and re-evaluating it. The game's ball speed, the playfield pitch or slope, can be altered from slow through to fast by adjusting the height of the back leg feet. For most games, I've found a somewhat faster pace is usually best, creating more active and exciting gameplay while giving you, the operator, better control of the game time. A game's speed should feel good to play and be assessed in conjunction with playfield adjustments and game settings. When adjusting the game's speed, make sure it doesn't lean to the left or the right and ensure all 4 legs are adjusted to be firmly on the ground. The ball save feature, introduced in the mid-80s, is worthy of a special mention. It was created for novice players to ensure they had a minimum amount of play time, so if they lost the ball quickly, it will be returned back into play. Ball save is a great feature if used wisely. It's been in common use ever since, but not all games have it. If your game has ball save and it's adjustable, I recommend an initial setting of about 12 seconds. Some games only have an on or off option. Others may have a choice of easy, medium or hard, or have a limited time range adjustment of say between 2 and 9 seconds. If you can't set the ball save to 12 seconds, set it to the easiest or longest time possible. Depending on the skill of your players, you may have to readjust it later, but 12 seconds is a good starting point at a new location. Be sure you regularly check the ball save data in the game's bookkeeping too. Most pinballs have game rule adjustments and difficulty settings for playfield features like special, extra ball, jackpots, multi-ball, various rounds and bonuses, etc. Game adjustments can be few or many, ranging from easy to difficult, and will vary a lot between manufacturers and individual games of all ages. Some adjustments are made by relocating connectors or by moving CPU switches on or off, or by altering numbers or choices in a score display menu using buttons located inside the coin door. These procedures may sound complex, but they're not. Game adjustments are usually quick and easy to do. Just consult your game's manual for details, and if you don't have the game manual, make sure you get one. Every game came with a manual, and these days they can be purchased in printed form or downloaded from websites. So do a search, get the manual and read it. I have for every game I've owned. And if you have a printed manual, make sure you leave it inside the game. Now a few common game adjustment tips. The first one being never operate a new or used pinball on the factory settings. I never have. Factory settings generally aim for short game times and are usually too difficult, especially for novice players. You should experiment with your game adjustments and see what plays best. Also check your tilt settings, and remember pinballs are meant to be shaken during play. It's part of the game, so don't have your tilt set too sensitive. I usually adjust the plumb bob tilt so the top is surrounded by the ring, as you see here. This tilt is too sensitive. There, set your tilt about there. If your game has warning tilts, set them to at least 3, preferably 4 or 5 if possible. If your game has an extra ball percentage adjustment, set it between 20 and 30%. Players love winning an extra ball. It's almost as satisfying as winning a free game. If your game just has an extra ball difficulty setting, choose the medium to hard option, as that usually equates to around 20%. Experiment with these and other adjustments in your game and see what plays best. It will certainly pay off. Now, looking at free games, replay scores and higher scores are usually achieved by the most experienced players. You don't want these players winning a lot of free games, as they've already received good value for money playing long enough to achieve a high score. When setting replay scores, have just one. For example, 850,000. Most games can have 2, 3 or 4 replay scores, but you should disable these, and that's usually done by setting them to 0 or switching them off. One replay score is all you need for a location, but never set a game to have no replay scores at all. If your game has a replay boost feature, always set it to the highest number possible. This will help ensure good players don't repeatedly win free games. If your game has percentage adjustments for replay, match and special, set them for a combined total of 16%. I've found 16% to be the sweet spot, with the best combination being 8% replay, 5% match and 3% special. This applies to most games from the mid-80s to current, although some games won't have separate adjustments for these features. Set the highest score to date quite low initially and adjust your game to award one replay for beating the very highest score only. If your game has several high score positions, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, etc., don't award any replays for beating these. If your pinball has a periodic high score to date reset option, turn it off. You should only reset the higher scores manually when your game is moved to another location for a new group of players. And make sure you do reset it with each move. It's easy to do. Read your game manual for details. Some games allow a player's high score initials to be more than 3 characters. Always set this to the maximum number permissible, as players like to put their name on a high score rather than just their initials. One of the most important factors is how long one game typically takes to play. You should aim for an average game time between 4 and 5 minutes long. Many manufacturers suggest 2 to 3 minutes, but that's definitely too brief. Players feel far more satisfied after a 4 or 5 minute game and are much more likely to play again after a good experience. If a game's play time is a little longer, it won't hurt, but if it's too short, it will. If you're unsure about any settings or adjustments, always favour what is longer or more fun. This will be more profitable for you long term, but be careful not to be too generous. Do plenty of play testing yourself and with your friends to ensure you have it set just right, and when on location, make sure you regularly examine the bookkeeping statistics. Do it every visit. They're very useful and all electronic pinballs have them. Read your game manual for details on those. Balls per game. While some players set their home pinball for 5 balls per game, you should almost never do this on location. The vast majority of pinballs are designed around a 3-ball game. There are a tiny number of games that can play better with a 5-ball game, but these are often game designs with overly difficult features. If you have a frustrating pinball with short game times, increasing the number of balls is not the cure. This will just frustrate players even more. Would you prefer to play a 3-ball game with longer ball times where you can achieve some goals, or a 5-ball game with shorter ball times that achieve little or nothing? The problem of short game times is not solved with more balls. The solution is to increase the playtime of each ball with some clever adjustments. If a game's ball time is okay, but it's somewhat more boring or mediocre to play and not getting much use, some operators think a 5-ball game is a good idea. This is a big mistake that will kill whatever game appeal you do have and significantly shorten its life on location. The last thing you want to do is give a player more balls on a boring game. The correct approach is to do whatever you can to make the game more interesting and fun, while also making it a little cheaper to play than other more popular pinballs. You should always consider both these factors with mediocre games. There are playfield adjustments to look at too. The most common is the outlane opening. If the ball goes into the outlane too frequently, or not too much, you can often adjust the entry size on many games by unscrewing and relocating one or more posts to pre-drilled holes, as seen here. You have 3 positions, 1, 2, 3. It's possible to add or relocate posts to any point by drilling new holes, but I don't recommend that as it's rarely necessary. I've only had to do that on a few games in over 35 years. Again, read your game manual for details on the playfield post adjustments and their locations. There are many other changes or adjustments you can make that are not in the manual. An example of this is one I often do to lengthen game times. I adjust the slingshots and make them a little less sensitive by increasing the gap between the switch contacts behind the rubber ring. Most slingshots are angled to kick the ball towards the outlane area where the ball could be lost. If they are less sensitive, the ball won't travel there as often, resulting in longer game times. Adjust the short contact on the inside at the base to increase the gap. As you can see, it's a little larger now. And then test it. Now to flippers. The flipper adjustments relate to the flipper angles you see here. It's extremely important to ensure both flippers are symmetrical and at the correct angle. They should fall back to the same point and be level when flipped up. The overall stroke from down to up should be exactly the same. If it's not, your flipper assemblies are either incorrectly adjusted or have worn or mismatched parts. It's vital every flipper works perfectly, flipping strongly and consistently, as flippers are a player's connection to the game. Now to game operation. Working well and playing well are two quite different things. How well features function can make a huge difference to a game's entertainment value. A few examples of things I often do are lightly lube and adjust spinners so they spin for as long and as fast as possible. A little bit of silicone lube, something like that, is ideal to use here. Also, a strong ball shooter gives the player a good initial feeling, and it's a good idea to lube it as well with the same lubricant. Properly adjusted flippers mentioned earlier are also essential, quite obviously. Another factor often overlooked is the sound. Many games have great sound effects, music or verbal instructions. These are useful, fun and exciting, so have the volume level as loud as permissible for your location. Study each game objectively and see what things you can do to improve or enhance the player's experience. Now to game maintenance. I recommend you visit a location every 1 or 2 weeks. Be guided by how much use the game is getting, but make sure you visit at least once a month minimum. Each time you visit, it's essential you play at least 2 full games while looking for any problems like blown lights, faulty switches or features, weak flippers, kickers or bumpers, etc., and fix any minor faults as soon as possible. If your game has any significant or major feature faults, turn the game off until they're repaired. Players will be very disappointed if they encounter features not working, and they will tell their friends. So major faults are a bad look that prompt players to avoid your game. It's much smarter to switch a game off until it's repaired rather than disappoint players. Also, keep the playfield surface and its features clean. Never let them get too dirty. A good tip is to look for black pencil lines of dirt in the return lanes and out lanes. When you see any, clean the entire playfield surface everywhere you can easily access, and remember to clean the ramps and balls too. In the past, players reported faults to the location attendant who would hopefully phone the operator. In today's communication age, players can easily report faults directly to you. Put a label on your game asking players to send a message, photo or video to you via Facebook, text, Twitter, Instagram, etc., whatever popular platforms you prefer, outlining any problems. This is also a great way to interact with your players and get valuable feedback. Most importantly, make sure you fix faults promptly within a couple of days, not a couple of weeks or until your next regular visit. And game pricing. This is one of the most important considerations. What price per play should you have? You don't want to be too cheap or too expensive. If there are other games in your area, see what price per play they are. It's generally not a good idea to start out more expensive than the competition unless their games are in poor playing condition and yours are clearly far superior. Players will pay more to play a good working, fun game compared to a rundown or boring game. Where possible, I strongly recommend bonus play pricing, e.g. insert 1 coin for 1 game or insert 2 coins for 3 games. We all like a discount for buying more up front. Pinball credits are no different. Many games allow your pricing to offer 2, 3, 4 or more price levels, e.g. $2 for 1 game, $4 for 3 games, $5 for 4 games. I recommend having 2 or 3 levels. 3 is usually the best, but keep it fairly simple and always set your pricing to be a little better value as you go up. Don't offer more than 3 price levels. It's unnecessary and your discounts will have to become quite large to be attractive. Also, I highly recommend installing a bill acceptor to accept notes along with CoinMex. Here in Australia, it's best if your game accepts $1 and $2 coins along with $5, $10 and $20 notes. Also, make certain the CoinMex and bill acceptor work perfectly and test them every visit. Some operators are also installing phone pay, swipe and tap card readers. These and other new payment technologies should always be considered. Now to cosmetic condition. Most owners like games kept at home to be in excellent overall condition. While this may be important for pinballs, it's not as important to players on location. Players don't care if the cabinet art is marked or faded. They look at the front coin door area, the back glass and playfield, so these have to be presentable, but they don't have to be perfect or original. The back glass and playfield should be clean, well lit, with pricing info and game instructions in place. A clean playfield glass with no scratches really improves the appearance. Some worn or faded playfield artwork, chipped plastics and other cosmetic defects are just not important for games on location. If your game looks presentable, people will try it, and if it's fun, they'll eagerly play it again. That's what it's all about on location, entertaining your players with a game that's fun, challenging and good value. It's really that simple. A game changes. Eventually, you will need to replace your pinball with a different game. Where possible, I suggest you get some player or location feedback about other games they may like. When the money you usually collect has fallen by about 30% or more, it's definitely time to change the game. Don't put this off. You will see it coming and you should have a replacement game organised and ready to go well before it's needed. To be viable long term, you really need to have a few different games you can rotate through other locations. The items I've covered in this show will help you maximise any pinball's appeal. There will of course be many other things you can do and they will vary on different games. Also keep in mind small changes or improvements may seem insignificant, but they can have a huge impact on a game's appeal. So experiment with your game and don't be too quick to dismiss anything as minor or unimportant. Another beneficial thing you should seriously consider is joining the Amusement Machine Industry Association in your area. Here in Australia, we have NAMOA, the National Amusement Machine Operators Association. NAMOA is an excellent not-for-profit association managed by members for members with branches in every state. NAMOA members enjoy access to many benefits like discounted insurance, comprehensive information and practical education modules, along with industry publications giving you direct access to key suppliers and support providers, along with trade discounts, special offers and events. NAMOA is an invaluable asset to all operators with a strong emphasis on supporting newcomers to the industry. Special introductory rates are available to new members. Contact me for details or visit namoa.com.au. One final thing I should mention, when you cross the line from player to operator, you will continue to play enthusiastically for a while, but over time you may find yourself playing less and less. Some people stop playing for fun altogether after becoming an operator. That didn't happen to me, but it does occur quite often, so if you don't want to risk losing interest as a player, don't become an operator. It may spoil you. If you are thinking about operating, we can help you set up any game for location use, be it a classic game or a modern game or anything in between, like these examples behind me. And remember, if you're located in Brisbane or a surrounding area, you can contact us for expert repairs, technical help or advice on your pinball machine or arcade video game. Please tap the like icon and leave any comments below. And while you're here, have a look at our other shows too. Remember to tap the subscribe button, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the bell icon too, and you'll be notified when we add new shows. I'm Mark Snyder. Thanks for watching Pinball Expert. See you next time.
The Pinball Expert show is produced by All Pinball Australia.
Let's play.